Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 19th, 2015 meeting of the Morro Bay Planning Commission. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. We have a quorum, and the meeting is called to order. And we will begin our meeting with a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. And for the record, I agree with you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. This is a time for announcements from the planning commissioners. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up this evening? Okay, we're very quiet today. So then we'll move on to public comment. This is a period set aside for members of the public who would like to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So please come forward, give us your name, and we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Janice House, a resident of Morro Bay. And I understand that you guys are working on neighborhood compatibility guidelines or something like that. And I remembered that a few years ago, there was also, the city tried to did a study to determine if we qualified for some redevelopment funds. And sure enough, I looked on the website, and in June of 2009, there's a big report of 250 plus pages that did a bunch of analysis about neighborhoods in Morro Bay, and it determined that almost 30% of the parcels that it studied were considered blighted. So if you're looking at neighborhood compatibility, I would hope that you're looking to raise the standard of people who want to do new buildings or remodels and not bring them down, and I would hope that this is being considered in all of this neighborhood compatibility guidelines that you guys are working on.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to, any other member of the public that would like to speak? No? Okay. It might be worth just mentioning what we're actually working on is residential design guidelines, and there's a certain component of neighborhood compatibility that works its way into those, but we're not really, that's not really the focus of it at this point. Okay. So then the next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. This consists of two items this evening: the current and advanced planning processing list and the adoption of resolution 19-15 approving CP0-448 as amended. Is there any discussion or comments on the consent calendar? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Scott, did you have any comments you wanted to make on the calendar, on the planning calendar?
I have no comments. It's receiving file.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. And we will move on then to our public hearings, of which we have 3 this evening. The first one is case number UP0-413 involving the location at 2198 Main Street. And I think that Joan is going to give us a presentation on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Teft. And good evening, Commissioners. So the first item before you this evening is a request for conditional use permit approval at 2198 Main Street to allow for an occupancy change to allow for the operation of a welding and metalworks shop within 100 feet of a residential use. The property is located within the mixed commercial residential zoning district within the North Main Street specific plan area, and it's on the corner of Main and Avalon Streets. The specific plan reads that the evaluation of appropriate uses on a parcel-by-parcel basis will be accomplished by the conditional use permit process, and that any applicant may elect to petition the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit pursuant to 1760 and this plan. So the applicant is Scott Morgan, and he's proposing to locate his business, Morro Bay Inspired Iron, at 2198 Main. The nature of the business is the welding of ornamental ironwork, and I believe that Mr. Morgan will go into further detail as to the specific type of welding and fabrication work that he engages in. The issue associated with locating this type of business in this location is noise levels due to the proposed project's proximity to residential uses. As a condition of approval, the proposed project or the proposed use shall adhere to Morro Bay Code Section 17.52.0302, which are the requirements for stationary noise thresholds for daytime decibel levels. This is the project site as seen from Main and Avalon streets. Currently, the project site is occupied by a swimming supply company in the former Rarely Open Art Studio as seen at the corner of Main and Avalon. It's on the left-hand side of the photo in the view from Main Street. And behind that Rarely Open shop, also sharing this parcel, is the residential security unit that is occupied by the landlord who has given permission for this use to go in at this site. This is the site plan with the proposed welding shop shown in yellow, with the landlord's residence located directly in front of that shop outlined in green there. Adjacent businesses include other light industrial uses, such as Shorty's Auto Service in the automotive repair business since 1972, and Eric's Muffler and Welding in business since 1997. And the city has not received any noise complaints from the operation of these businesses at this location to date. And interestingly, the existing welding and muffler shop is located twice as close to the adjacent residential parcel as the proposed use, and it produces more noise than this proposed project. The floor plan shows the large roll-up door, which is at the bottom of the floor plan. It opens towards Highway 1, which will provide a significant reduction in the amount of noise that's directed towards the adjacent residential uses. And notice of this proposed change of occupancy was mailed to all owners and occupants within 300 feet of the proposed project, and until this time, no comments or concerns have been received by the city. So staff recommends Planning Commission approval of the requested conditional use permit for the proposed change of occupancy by adopting Planning Commission Resolution 20-15, subject to the findings and conditions of approval. Thank you, and I will be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, sorry.
On the rolling door, the 10 by 10 rolling door, is the plan to keep that open during the day, or is that just going to be open on occasion, or will it be down most of the time? And then the entrance on both the front and the side be the public access?
I do not know, but I believe Mr. Morgan could speak to that a bit.
I'll ask him when he gets.
Okay, thank you.
I have John, the fire department is comfortable with this building for this use, and it's the flammability issue is not a problem.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions for staff, this is time for public comment on this, and we usually start with the applicant. If you'd like to come forward, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. I had a picture slideshow and everything arranged, but I'd like to address your questions if you have any right off the bat. As far as the door being open, I do a lot of welding in the shop. It faces pretty much towards the beach, so the wind blows in. I'd love to keep it open a lot, but I usually don't. It's at least halfway down. It's vented at the bottom because the wind blows the weld puddle away from what I'm doing. So most of the time, it stays kind of low, and like I said, it faces right at Highway 1. It's pretty good wind flowing through there, so most of the time the door's about halfway down.
So that would mitigate any noise.
Oh,
winding
yeah,
down.
and there's a lot of trees. I have 40-foot trees on one side right to the next to the building that come out. Building here. I can't, when I'm in the shop, all I can hear is Highway 1. So I can't imagine it could produce more noise than Highway 1 could, but let's see. That's just a picture of my family to let you know that we've been a resident here for 16 years, and my family's owned a house here since I was born, as far back as I can remember. This is some of the stuff I've done as far as handrail jobs, homes, stainless steel. This is a local residence here in Morro Bay. Pivot gate, swivels all off of one big, huge bearing buried in the ground. Couple more jobs, one San Luis Obispo, one here in Morro Bay. This one is out of town. This is I think that's one of the owners of eBay's homes in San Francisco. This used to be the old brown cookie factory down there in Cayucas. It was converted over into a residential home. They wanted to use the upstairs in the building, so they put a building or a room at each end, and we created a loft that went up it from the bottom. These are also local Morro Bay residences that I've done. I ran a business here 6 years ago for 4 years and did pretty good, and I partnered up with a guy in Los Osos. We just recently went our ways, and I wanted to get back into the town I live in instead of being in Los Osos and driving there every day. Now the building I won is actually, I think it's 3 streets down from my house. So that works out pretty good. This is actually the front of the building here. That's the door closed. It's vented at the bottom, so I still get fresh air, and I don't have to leave it open all day long. And I normally don't. It's usually closed. The inside of the building, steel building, insulated walls, drywall. The rear building, that's the only door on the left that faces the house behind me. And on top of that, it's covered outside of there with glass over the roof and a full stucco garage behind that, between me and that closest house. This is pretty much an overlay of what we just talked about. That's the front of Rarely Open, the trees to the right. This is Shorty's, and this is Eric's muffler shop here, which sits, that can't be more than 13 feet from that home there. And like I said, he's a good friend of mine, and he's never had a complaint in 17 years, and he's hoping everything works out for me because we do weld the same, but we do different work, completely different things. He does structural welding, I-beams, cranes, things like that. I do ornamental welding. It's small things inside homes, bronze, mostly stainless steel, which is good for around the coast because that's pretty much what everyone wants. It's the easiest way to maintain something around here. And I've got 25 years experience doing it, from being a millwright, union millwright, to a pipe fitter. If you guys have eaten or drinking anything today, I probably made part of it. Other than that, if you guys have any questions for me about noise or anything else, I'd like to hear it.
Okay. Let's hear from the rest of the public first, and then if there are questions, we'll call you back up.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak on this issue? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Just a statement. I used to run crews of rig welders, and that's hard work. And also did some wrought iron work back when I was a kid in high school. And I think that's what the beauty of our community is encouraging artists, because that's art is what it is, and I think it'd be a nice addition to our community in North Morro Bay.
Okay. Any other no other questions for? Okay. Well,
I have a facetious one. I was wondering if that shop is going to stay that clean.
I have this thing about walking on crumbs on the ground, so I'm constantly sweeping. But the drill press is going, I can't, after twice going I'm sweeping it up. But yeah, it usually does stay pretty close to that clean. Plus the guys, I like to keep a clean shop. I do.
okay.
Well,
Discussion?
I guess I'll keep talking then. I've seen that corner change multiple businesses there. It was a glass foundry. There was a pottery kiln back there. There's been a lot of high heat applications back there, and I haven't heard of any problems. And I think this is what we really need to encourage in this community, especially in this North Morro Bay area, so that to bring that whole strip, to bring the commercial alive there, and the local arts and crafts people is what's going to energize that, and that's one of the things I really like to see as far as when we get into specific plans is putting that area, because of the highway visibility, it allows itself to be set up as a drive-by arts strip, similar to like Solana Beach, the train station down at Solana Beach, the old tracks down there. So I approve this, this application for there.
Great. Michael?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we're lucky to have Mr. Morgan and, this idea of artisans coming in here. That's beautiful work. I teach my students to hire you. So I'm happy to see that you've got an incredible level of work, and I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Lohr and Commissioner Sadowski. You're the kind of person we want to see lining Main Street with your family, living nearby.
I'm in total agreement. It's just when I received the packet, I was very much delighted to see your application, and just really happy to see that new businesses are coming to Morro Bay and feel that there's business enough here to be successful, and it's very encouraging.
So I think we're pretty much unanimous on this one. I'm totally convinced by the staff report that noise won't be an issue, and I don't see anybody here who's concerned about noise. And I agree with what everyone else has said. This will be a great addition to the community of Morro Bay. So I think we're ready for a motion, huh?
Please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number PC 20-15 as written, presented.
Second.
Okay. So I guess we need a roll call vote on this one.
Commissioner Lucas?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Lohr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Aye.
And Chairman Teft?
5 thumbs up.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you very much. So our second item today is case number UP0-390 and AD0-095 concerning residential construction at 670 Shasta Street. And I think we're going to pick on Joan one more time.
Yes, sir. One more time. So the item before you now is a request for conditional use permit and parking exception approvals at 670 Shasta to allow for an addition exceeding 25% of existing floor area for a single-family residence, and to allow for a single-car garage with tandem parking in the driveway to provide for the second required parking space. The property is located in a residential neighborhood in central Morro Bay, south of Morro Bay Boulevard, west of Kern Avenue, and east of Main Street. The lot lies within the R2 duplex residential zoning district in an area composed of a mix of both single-family and multifamily residential development. Current requirements of the Morro Bay Municipal Code for setbacks and parking render the existing structure non-conforming. 2 covered and enclosed parking spaces are required, and the existing residence includes only a single-car garage. Also, the front and detached garage building setbacks are inadequate. The front setback requirement is 20 feet, and the existing structure is only 15 feet off the property line, and the detached garage building currently sits on the property line where a 1-foot setback is the minimum requirement. This is the existing site plan and the site as seen from Shasta Avenue. Pursuant to Morro Bay Municipal Code Section 17.44.050 for individual residences, one tandem parking space may be allowed subject to the approval of a parking exception. Exceptions to the parking standards require that certain findings be made. First, that a tandem space in the driveway will provide adequate on-site parking for the use. The length of the driveway is adequate to accommodate a parked car, and many dwellings within the city have one-car garages, and this will therefore not constitute a grant of special privilege. Second, the tandem parking will not result in traffic safety problems because the space is located outside of the public right-of-way and site distance is adequate for vehicles maneuvering both into and out of the driveway. And third, the applicant's parking proposal is reasonable for the full enjoyment of their property given similar parking arrangements in the project vicinity and given the footprint and construction of the existing home on the site. This is the proposed site plan showing the detached garage building moved towards the rear of the property and fixing the non-conforming setback from 0 to 2 feet off the property line. Municipal Code Section 17.56.160.b requires the approval of a conditional use permit for projects proposing additions in excess of 25% of the existing floor area to a non-conforming structure. The applicant proposes to add 238 square feet to an existing 600 square foot structure. The proposed addition is shown at the rear of the existing residence, and it conforms to all provisions of the municipal code. The floor plan illustrates a new bedroom, bathroom, and hallway. Approval of a conditional use permit requires that certain findings be made, as you know. First, the addition is in compliance with all applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance, including setback requirements. Second, the applicant is required to submit a complete building permit application and obtain the required permit prior to construction. Third, the project is in allowed use within the R2 zone and is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood development. And lastly, it is not feasible to make the structure conforming because major reconstruction would be necessary to meet the required front setback and to accommodate a 2-car garage on site. The proposed addition is shown, like I said, at the rear of the existing residence and conforms to all provisions of the code. These are the elevations showing the proposed single-family addition and its compatible design, the front elevation and the rear, and the side elevations. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the requested conditional use permit for the proposed addition of a nonconforming structure and the parking exception by adopting Planning Commission Resolution 18-15, subject to the findings and conditions of approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff? One question, okay.
Joan, the proposed structure with the addition is even under 1,000 square feet. So doesn't that meet the exemption for not requiring the second parking spot?
I don't believe so. No, sir, not in the R2. It's not in an overlay zone.
Okay.
Excuse me, Joan. This house was built in 1936, and it
yes, ma'am.
And yes, and it has some historical charm. And do you know if they're planning on keeping that historical charm in, like the stuccoing and keeping it similar for the addition?
Yes, ma'am. I do believe so. Everything on the outside will remain similar, and there was a historic evaluation done as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, it wasn't completely. Is the proposal to move the current garage or to demolish and rebuild?
Demolish and rebuild.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So no other questions from the commission. We'd be happy to hear from the public, starting with the applicant or the applicant's representative, if you'd like to come forward and let us hear what you have to say.
Good evening.
My name is Chris Christensen. I'm a representative for my daughter, who is actually the owner of the property now. All I can say is that we were contacted by our daughter. She wanted to do some investments and wanted us to look around the Morro Bay area and see if we could find something suitable for her price range to do just that, something that she could possibly show a little profit on, and something that would help benefit the city of Morro Bay. My criteria in that area was that we try to find something that would encourage and attract young couples to move to Morro Bay. When I first found this house through Morro Bay Realty, it was a very small house. 600 square feet is quite small. But I saw the potential to add a bedroom and therefore make it a 2-bedroom. And I found that somewhat attractive, because then it would stay within a price range that was more affordable for smaller families and still attractive for a small family with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. That was my intent. I did get a few surprises along the way. I wasn't aware of the historical analysis that cost me $4,000 that I wasn't aware of. But we complied with that. That was done. The analysis just determined that there was no historical value to it, or nothing that was needed to be done historically. So at that point, and at this point, we're ready to move forward with the project. It has put me in a position that has made it difficult to show any profit on, but hopefully I'll break even on it, and we'll still be able to attract some young couples to the area and have an attractive older Spanish-style home, which I find very appealing myself, and I absolutely did not want to change the appearance and or the historical value that structure has because of that. The only thing that might slightly change is the red tiles on the roof. They're very old. When we remove them to redo the roof, which was absolutely required for the insurance company, they actually had a very difficult time considering whether or not they would insure this home with a flat roof. I had to assure them that I was going to address that issue, and in that process, I will have to remove all the tile that now surrounds the parapet wall. I'm sure that Gerald knows what that means. And those tiles will be replaced with a similar look, but a newer tile. They won't be the same old Spanish tiles, but from the street more than likely look identical. And the garage will have the same appearance. The garage, to answer your question, was actually falling down, or is falling down. And if I lean on it hard after we get a permit, it probably will fall down. So that's my hope. And fortunately, it doesn't even have a foundation or a slab under it. And so it'll be an easy removal and cleanup. And my intent was to provide more off-street parking, which is why I chose to move the garage back farther. So we now have enough space for not 1 but 2 cars in front of the garage and a garage parking. So we'll have plenty of space for 3 cars if they needed to, off-street. That's pretty much my criteria, and we're just looking for your permission to move this project forward.
Okay.
And I would like to say thank you to Joan. She has she's suffered with me through this process. I actually turned this application in October, and this is a long ways down the road, but it was mostly due to that historical analysis, which I fought tooth and nail and found no way to get around it, so finally complied and did it. But Joan has been very patient. Thank you. Any questions before I exit stage left?
Let's hear from any other members of the public, and then we'll see if we have questions. So are there any other folks here who would like to speak to this particular issue? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to commission. Are there questions for the applicant? Michael.
Mr. Christensen, my only question is, I don't want to put any more cost on the project, but we've spent a lot of time here in the community talking about the nature of our water issues, and you've got a lot of paving in the project. I wondered if you had considered pervious paving that would be in a locking paver configuration instead of concrete for the drive and things like that?
Yes, I have considered it, and I will be considering it. I actually haven't gotten all of the subcontractor bids at this point. As Gerald knows, I've built 5 homes here, and my home on the corner of Kern and Main Street, I actually tore down the old existing home and built myself about 7 years ago. And I actually intended to do something similar here, but as I just turned 71, I realized I'm going to have to sub out some of this work nowadays. And I will be looking at subbers, and I will certainly be looking at those 2 options. For me, it'll come down to 2 things, appearance and cost. But if it's close, I would prefer going with pavers. I actually prefer the appearance and the runoff factor involved with pavers versus concrete. I would rather absorb that into the soil than run it all down this curb and into the gutters in the sewer system, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The other thing was, I don't know if it was shared with you what these guidelines that we're working on are now. The only thing I saw that again, this is just something I mentioned. I'm not going to condition any of these things because I think you're doing a really nice job on this, is the nature of the garage door. And the nature of the detail on the garage door.
The detail on the garage door?
Yeah.
I actually will probably get a roll-up garage door that will try to look somewhat compatible with that age on the exterior. Although the old garage door was one of those swing-out garage doors, I think the roll-up garage door affords more parking so that you don't have to back up 7 feet in order to allow those doors to open. Right. But I do want that garage door to be treated in a way that it looks like an antique garage door, even though it's a roll-up.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks. Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm just going to comment.
Sure.
As Chris has mentioned, Chris is a friend of mine. I have not talked to him about this project or communicated with him on this. So I guess the question to staff should I recuse myself or?
You're allowed to know people. It's okay.
Okay. Just don't want Mr. Brown coming looking at us and stuff. So, Chris, like I said, I haven't even talked to you about this project. The only thing I'd comment on, and this is just a comment, is just those bedrooms are going to be awful small. But that's the nature of a small house.
Yeah, it is. The existing bedroom is really small.
Yeah.
I'm not sure a queen bed will fit in there.
Yeah. So, but also, I like the idea of pushing the garage back, and I think that would mitigate whichever choice he makes on the garage door, because it's going to be so far from the street. The only other thing, too, I'd like to just bring up to the commission is that, this is one of those cases where we are working on the guidelines, and we are talking about articulation, and we are talking about, trying to get multiple materials on facades and stuff, but this is one of those instances where that doesn't work. This is what it is, and it's true to its nature, and this is one of the ones that falls outside the box. So of the guidelines we're looking at, and so I want to just be aware, or just kind of mention that, and be thinking that this, the guidelines we're talking about don't fit every occasion. This is one of the ones that is a good project that doesn't fit that, but it's still a viable project.
Right.
If I could ask Jerry a question, I'm not really sure exactly what you're referring to, but I would like to be more aware of what those are in case I do get crazy and decide to do another project in the near future.
Your project.
I was because of the historical value.
Yeah.
I was forced to stay within the structures stuccoing.
Yeah.
To keep that stucco appearance. That was kind of against my best wishes. I'm not really a big fan of stucco, but to change that would have changed the entire historical value of the appearance of the structure. So I just forced myself to say I'm going to have to bite the bullet and go with the stucco with flat roof, parapet walls, stucco, and et cetera, et cetera. But if there's something that I should be more aware of, if you could, quickly, what some of those things are.
Yeah, we are working on, and we're seeing it later tonight, is the residential design guidelines that we're hoping to be adopted pretty soon. And we actually had a workshop this last weekend that went over those. So they're available on the community website, on the city website.
Right.
And it would behoove anybody who's thinking about buying property or interested in moving here that they investigate those, before they put any money down.
Couldn't agree with you more. Wished I would have done that.
Well, you fit you worked it within our guidelines, or within the parameters, the basic thought process of what we're trying to do.
One other thing I do want to say, Gerald, there was a very specific reason why I never mentioned this project to you, and it's what you just alluded to. I did not want there to be any appearance of impropriety and or put you in a position of having to recuse.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. So are there any other questions? We'll bring it back to the commission. Comments, discussion?
I just want to say more materials isn't better. This is beautifully understated. Most of our things, I would say, we could get rid of half the materials and they'd be better off.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I think it would fit within our guidelines, to be honest with you, because I think my impression of our guidelines is that you don't have to do all of the stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's not and I think the addition here and the garage are going to be very, very much consistent with the existing house, and I think that's the criteria that would be most important if I were evaluating this project according to the guidelines. So. I think it's great. I think it's I think this is another one of the projects we see that is taking an older structure that might not have been useful and modifying it so that it has new life and can support another family. So I'm certainly going to support it. So if we have no further discussion, we can call for a motion.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I move to approve resolution number PC 18-15.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, then we'll have a roll call.
Commissioner Lucas?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Luer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Aye.
And Chairman Teft?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Well, we had originally talked about taking a break at this point, but we're moving so well, I think we could probably go ahead and address the next item. Yeah. Okay, so this will be public hearing item number B3, which is case number UP0-058, concerning the site at 1215 Embarcadero. And this time we're going to pick on Cindy.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Teft and members of the Planning Commission. Before you tonight is conditional use permit UP0-058. This project is located at 1215 Embarcadero. And this project before you is consideration of recommending a favorable recommendation to the City Council for a revised concept plan and simultaneous precise plan approval of this use permit. The applicant is Morro Bay Landing, and this is part of the greater Harborfront Revitalization Project that is linked with Great American Fish Company, Harbor Hut, and what used to be known as Verges Landing. Staff has prepared a series of slides to walk you through this project and summarize the long history of this project. This use permit was first approved by Planning Commission in the fall of 2007. It was subsequently approved as concept plan. It was subsequently approved by the City Council on May of 2008. The project is located in the original jurisdiction of the California Coastal Commission, and as required, they received their coastal development permit by Coastal Commission in 2009. And so here's a phasing map that shows, as was approved with the concept plan, the project was allowed to phase their approvals. What's before you tonight is a request to approve phase 2, as you see on the top part of that slide there. In 2010, as required by our plan development overlay requirements, the project received precise plan approval by the Planning Commission for, I'm going to try to use the, oh, I guess the pointer's not working on the slide, on this. Okay, so in 2010, the Planning Commission granted precise plan approval of what's shown on your screen as Phase 1A and Phase 1B. And so for purposes of simplifying matters, the city has one master conditional use permit that covers this entire area known as Phase 1 and Phase 2. One CDP, or one coastal development permit, was issued by Coastal Commission in 2009. It was later amended in 2013. The Phase 1 portion of the conditional use permit, which received precise plan approval by Planning Commission in June of 2010, was inaugurated when the first building permit was issued for Phase 1A, which you'll see on your slide there, excuse me. Phase 1A was construction of floating docks. That building permit was issued. The docks were completed and the building permit was finalized. Phase 1B is construction of additional docks, and that building permit is currently in building plan check right now. So tonight I will be discussing Phase 2 improvements and all that's related to that. So moving right along. So I'll just go through the zoning here. The zoning, the project is located in the CFPD, Commercial Fishing Zoning District, in the PD overlay, Plan Development Overlay. And on this slide, you will see a series of Coastal Commission changes. And so to continue with what I was saying before, typically what would happen at this point in the process is the Planning Commission would have authority to grant the final precise plan approval on a conditional use permit that's in a PD overlay. However, after the project went before the Coastal Commission, in reviewing the city's approved concept plan and the application for coastal development permit, conditioned several changes to the project. And most notably, as this is described in your staff report, are changes to the architectural design. This table on the screen here summarizes numerically the various changes. As described in the staff report, the building has gotten smaller. There is a realignment of Pocket Park. There is realignment of the driveway, and the second floor office space has also gotten smaller. And so I'm going to, I skipped this in the beginning, just briefly here, the project description before you is this revised concept plan, precise plan, addresses those landside improvements which include demolition of 3 visitor-serving buildings and reconstruction of a 1 to 2-story commercial visitor-serving building, which includes ground floor retail and second floor restaurant, along with observation deck, outdoor seating area, and public access improvements, as well as parking, driveway, realignment, public restrooms, and creation of a small pocket park. On this page here, this shows the demolition plan for those 3 buildings. In the center, and I apologize, I don't have a pointer. I was relying on being able to point out images here on the slides. But in the center, you will see the existing Morro Bay Landing business, which was formerly known as Verge's building. That is one of the buildings slated for demolition, along with the building to the right that is shaded, and that is an ancillary building for the. Oh, thank you. This is great. Okay. Extra pointers in the audience here. Oh, okay. This is also slated for demolition, and then this building that everyone knows is the former Thai boat restaurant. At least I hope everyone knows it as that, but it's currently the location of the Dockside 3 restaurant. Okay. Bear with me here. I'm going to catch up to my slides here. I'm moving faster than my notes have. Now I have two things to hold, so. Okay. So here's the proposed site plan, and unfortunately this is a little bit hard to see on the PowerPoint slide, but in the plans that have been provided to you, the blue dotted lines represent the city's original approval of use permit UPO 058. And these blue dotted lines show the outline of what the city had approved at the concept plan stage. So in this shaded area is where the new buildings would go. And actually this is a building, I believe, that would be demolished. And then over here is the realigned driveway. The driveway will be shifted slightly to the north to accommodate WB 62 trucking standards. That will facilitate access for wider driveway access, facilitate fishing delivery, on and offloading of commercial fishing operations. In support of Measure D, this area is where the pocket park will be, and in a later slide I will show you a detail of the site amenities for this pocket park. I have another slide here that also gives you a site plan comparison just for purposes of illustration. At the top of the image, you will see what the site plan looked like as it was approved originally by the city during the concept plan stage and by the Coastal Commission. And their CDP number is issued there. So this would be the original, and then this, the building now is tucked back more to the west, and this shows the site plan there at the bottom. And then also the applicant will be doing a presentation, and then I believe they will have additional images as well. So on this slide here, you will see the proposed first floor plan. The new proposed commercial building would be a 7,286 square foot retail building, a portion of which would be one story, and that one story portion is on the south side here in this area at 17 feet in height, and a portion of which would be two story, which would be 24 feet 10 inches in height. The new commercial building would include observation deck, outdoor seating area, and public restrooms. The existing restaurant to the left, which would be in this area, or which is in this area, excuse me, would be relocated to the second floor of this new building. The first floor would be 4,726 square feet with over 2,200 square feet of public open space to include a 700 square foot observation deck. The retail uses of the first floor of the building are all consistent with Measure D, which would be sport fishing tackle shop, marine-related retail shop, charter boat service, along with elevator and public restrooms. Currently, there are no official public restrooms at this site. On the second floor of the building will be 2,560 square feet, which would include the relocated Dockside 3 restaurant. It is conditioned to be no larger than 952 square feet, and this is one of the issues that was discussed during the early approval process by the Planning Commission to ensure consistency with Measure D. So a specific condition was placed on the project that allowed the relocation of that formerly Thai boat restaurant to go in this area, and Planning Commission made findings that would be consistent with Measure D. As part of the project, and as discussed in the staff report, is the parking driveway realignment. And as stated previously, that would be the driveway would be shifted slightly to the north, and that would currently there's a tight access there that would allow for greater access by delivery trucks, as I stated. Okay, so on the next slides, I'll walk you through the elevations. In these slides, you see what the original approved elevations look like when it was approved as concept by the city. The original approvals had more of a modern design. And when this went before Coastal Commission for changes, one of the specific conditions, and it's quoted in your staff report, was that Coastal Commission required that the change be more consistent with the city's nautical maritime theme. And then, so here is the revised elevation before you, just to kind of orientate you to where you are on this image. This is the existing Harbor Hut building. This is the existing pole sign that's on the property. This would be the new two-story building, two-story in the north, one-story on the south. And then this shows the existing, it's a fish processing business. It has currently it has a unique dome-like shape to it architecturally. So this is showing you the east elevation, and then this would be showing you the west elevation from the water side. And again, just to orientate where you are, Harbor Hut on the right, and then the fish processing on the left. South elevation, this would be looking from Harbor Hut. Part of the project also includes relocation of the existing gangway to allow for access to the to-be-constructed docks that are currently in building plan check, which will be necessary when the existing building is demolished. And then this is north elevation. You see in the background the Harbor Hut sign and the pole sign. This is their public access plan. So there are numerous public access benefits that will be created as a result of this project. Most notably is the extension of the Harbor Walk and both bayside and lateral access, and then vertical access. Vertical access would be provided at the north and south portions of the lease sites. In addition, public access includes the provision of the small pocket park, 568 square feet, observation decks, outdoor seating areas, as stated, the public restrooms and a relocated gangway. And then this is a image that was included in the original concept plan approvals. This is more of a zoomed out view of showing you how the Harbor Walk extension will tie together. So this particular project is just in the left here. In this right area, you see GAFCO, Great American Fish Company, and then in the center open area. And so the blue line indicates the Harbor Walk. When the parking lot is shifted to the north, it will facilitate 3 additional parking spaces that will be added, and naturally the Harbor Walk will be extended to extend that area. And then the green color indicates docks and boardwalks, and this is consistent with the original 2009 CDP approval. In 2013, when they amended their coastal development permit, there were some dock reconfigurations, but I chose this slide here so you could see how the Harbor Walk connects with adjacent development and lateral access too. This is a slide that shows the existing view. So the existing Morro Bay Landing building, the existing Dockside 3 building, and then the third building that would be demolished is in an area right here, and that's used as basically storage for the Morro Bay Landing building. As approved by this council and the city during the original use permit approvals, this shows the simulations that were presented to Planning Commission in the very same PowerPoint that I'm giving tonight in 2007. This is what staff had shown the Planning Commission. The top slide shows the existing viewpoint, and the bottom slide shows the approval. And as you can see, the architecture is noticeably different today from this original slide here in 2007. And here's the visual simulation from what they are proposing today in their attempt to meet Coastal's condition that stated And I will paraphrase here that the design and appearance of the building be modified to reflect a working dock, nautical maritime theme. Plans shall clearly identify all measures that will be applied to ensure such design aesthetic is achieved. So the original concept plan there at the bottom, and then how they have modified it today. The next couple of slides show you a viewpoint from the dock side. This white building here is the back side of the Morro Bay Landing building, and these docks that you're looking at here are the Phase 1A docks that were constructed and finalized as part of the use permit UPO 058, and then the proposed view. So here you would see the new building as it goes in, so before and after. And then moving on to view corridor. So as discussed in the 2007 Planning Commission staff report, as part of the Waterfront Master Plan, view corridors for lease sites of 50 feet or greater in width are required to have a minimum view corridor of 30% of lease width. And we did receive some questions from, staff did receive questions from Chairperson Teft regarding that. And as the city approved this project in 2007 and 8, the way that the staff report read was that because the applicant was proposing to exceed the height requirement under the Waterfront Master Plan, although it does require a 30% view corridor for lots greater than 50 feet in width, the proposed project will incorporate amenities such as a public view deck, lateral access, and widening of the sidewalk in some places. And I believe that was referring to the parking improvements. But more importantly, it goes on and it says, although this view corridor specifies a linear dimension, the guidelines allow the ability to offset this requirement provided the volume of space is increased. The examples given in the waterfront plan have been simplified for ease of illustration that represents a boxy structure in exchange for the unobstructed views. And so as the city approved this top image there, and this shows you the that more modern original architecture design that they had, they included this vertical area here as part of their required view corridor area. The way that the plans are shown in this new design is that the open view area is now actually increased from an open view area of 44% to an open view area of 46%. And so staff has looked at this view corridor consistent with the way that the project was approved in 2007 and 2008. Okay. And in this slide, this is a further illustration of the pocket park as you saw on the site plan earlier. The pocket park is just that. It's going to be a very small pocket park. It does show proposed landscaping, landscaping materials and benches, and then the proposed trash and receptacle is located in this area. Although that does take up a portion of the pocket park, there was no other feasible location to both accommodate trash pickup of this area and also provide for an area where there could be public trash receptacles. And so that's why you see it in this pocket park area. On these slides, it shows the proposed public access signs, and as is consistent with other Embarcadero projects, the project is conditioned to provide for public access signs announcing that the floating docks are available for public access, and then the top sign is a interpretive sign discussing California's commercial fisheries. And there are existing signs down on this lease site currently when the Phase 1A docks were constructed and finalized. These were some of the conditions that the planning staff checked and verified that they were permanently mounted and pursuant to the conditions for this particular use permit. And then the color board, there is a color board there at your desk for review. This is an image of the color board. And then pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act, mitigated negative declaration was prepared and adopted by the Council on May 5th, 2008 as part of the concept plan approval. This precise plan approval required no further environmental review necessary, although staff would like to point out that all established mitigations remain and continue with this project for the precise approval. One other thing that I'd like to point out as part of the presentation, and I'm going to, before I go through the recommendation and conclude, I'm going to go back to one other issue that was addressed in our staff report, and which is the issue of signs. So as part of the project, the applicant did submit a sign program, and that is included on your plans that identifies the proposed signage for the new retail uses. As part of the review of the project, however, staff has observed that there is an existing non-conforming pole sign on the premises, and the pole sign is non-conforming because it exceeds the height. Staff pointed that out to the applicant and requested that the pole sign be removed. The applicant wishes to maintain the sign as part of the development. Staff, as part of the review of the project and considering the scope and magnitude of the redevelopment of the site, staff does not support a pole sign whose design is clearly inconsistent with the fishing village harbor, and going through a project where Coastal Commission specifically called out the intent to maintain the identity of the city of Morro Bay as a commercial fishing village. The pole sign, in staff's careful review and analysis of the sign ordinance, does not serve or further that mission. And so staff has recommended that the pole sign be removed, and staff has proposed a condition, which is planning condition number 3 on that project for Planning Commission's review. And then the last thing that I would like to discuss is, so as I alluded to earlier, staff did get questions from Chairperson Teft regarding some procedural and some other issues regarding, was a coastal development permit actually issued for this development? And just to clarify, yes, a coastal development permit was issued. The way that Coastal Commission does their coastal development permits, it's basically in a 2-step process. They, after receiving city approval via the concept and the concept approval that a planning commission and a city council would grant, they get their what's called a notice of intent to issue a coastal development permit, and you will see that's on the last page of your plan sheets. After the applicant comes back to the city and receives its precise plan approval from the Planning Commission, then the applicant would go back to Coastal Commission a second time for what's called compliance review. That's when Coastal Commission looks at all of the conditions that they established on the project when they did their public hearing. The applicant says, yes, we've addressed all of your conditions, and here's how we did it. And much like our own concept and precise, that's when they get into the nitty-gritty, and Coastal says, okay, yes, you did meet all of your conditions, so here is your actual coastal development permit. And so that's why you will see planning condition number 1, where staff is saying receipt of a signed coastal development permit. It's a bit of a semantics thing, but because they did not do compliance review yet for the land side improvements of this project, they got their coastal development permit in 2009, and it was amended in 2013, which granted them extensions to carry forward their approvals. They have only gotten compliance review on those waterside improvements. So they still need to go to coastal for that, and so that is what staff has recommended be a condition, which is planning condition 1, that we want to see that actual signed CDP, that they've gone through that compliance review, and we would check for that prior to issuance of a building permit. So that kind of clarifies that, hopefully. And then as I alluded to during the presentation, are the conditional use permit and the coastal development permit for this project still valid? And the answer is Yes, because it was inaugurated with the issuance of the first building permit. It is a little bit unusual in how the city would process a permit for a project like this in 2015. In 2007, this was a project that was a combination of 22 lease sites by 3 different business owners. And everything that I have seen in the administrative record is that the city, in multiple conversations with the applicant, encouraged that they combine one master use permit. But the way that it has been conditioned over time is that each business owner is responsible for their own public access improvements and their own development. So, for instance, with this particular project, you have the demolition reconstruct activities, and it's just the land side. They do have public access improvements, which are the public park and the lateral access and the observation deck on the second floor. That is their public access that will be required to be completed. But with Phase 1, which included the GAFCO remodel, and I believe some of the planning commissioners may have some familiarity with this if they were on the planning commission in 07 and 08, they had their own public access improvements. And so it's as if the conditional use permit is broken up into, separate sub-use permits. It does make the project a little bit more complicated, and so staff has tried to simplify that as best as possible. And then I think I may conclude the presentation so that you can get with the questions here. So normally at this stage, staff would ask that the Planning Commission make a finding that the precise plan is in substantial conformance with the concept plan. And if the Planning Commission was in favor of the project, they would make that finding, they would approve the precise plan, and we would be done at the planning stage. However, as I've described both in the staff report and in the presentation, Planning Commission is unable to make the finding that the project substantially conforms to the concept plan. And so what staff is recommending is that similar to other projects that we've done where we do a combined concept precise plan is that the Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation to the City Council to conditionally approve a revised concept plan, and then City Council would make that final precise plan approval, and that's reflected in your Planning Commission Resolution 1715. And so that is our staff recommendation, that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve a revised concept plan / precise plan approval by adopting that motion. With that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions for staff?
I guess the question that I have is, the Coastal Commission has never seen the revised building.
They have.
With this roofscape.
With this roofscape, in fact, since when the Planning Commission staff report was released last week, I've had conversations with staff today and yesterday regarding this project. They are familiar with it. They know how that looks. And then I believe anecdotally I've also heard that the applicant's representative has forwarded information on the architecture. I have not gotten any definitive, yes, we like this architecture, no, we don't. The applicant may have more information about that. But they are aware, and we have been communicating, and they know that this will be coming forward to them in some manner, whether the city approves it as is or whether the city approves it with conditions or changes.
I'm trying to get my head around this. When it first came in, you had 3 owners, right? And it was the whole thing. So when you look at a coastal development permit and access, when it's looked at as a larger project, things can get mitigated accordingly across lease lines, correct? So what has occurred here is it's been broken up and now each particular unit has their own deals going on. I'm having a hard time trying to see how that's going to get, how that integrates with the next phases and the other areas. How's that going to, how's staff going to integrate that?
So in the coastal permit, coastal staff also recognize this too, and just trying to keep a handle on all of these different projects. And in the coastal permit, I remember it's on page 28, but one of the special conditions is that they assigned timing deadlines for all of the GAFCO work that had to be done and all of the Harbor Hut docks that needed to be done. And then originally it was referred to as verges, but now it's Dockside 3. When these projects have come in, staff has looked at each of them with its own separate project description. And really in much the same way as if staff had 5 different projects across town and their separate use permits. This is, it's a twofold task, because one, staff is looking at, okay, what's the project description for phase 1A or phase 1C or, or 2G. I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating here. What's the project description for that, and what are the conditions of approval? But then also at the same time looking at, okay, what are the overall use permit conditions, and what are coastal's conditions, and checking through and what's been done and what needs to be done. And one of the ways that we've done that is by having the applicant provide us a matrix, and it's, all of the, so if, for example, there were 75 conditions, give us all 75 conditions and tell us what applies to, each of the phases, and then we can reconcile that with what we have in the administrative record. So, like I said, it's pretty complicated, and it's somewhat convoluted. I don't think that the city would probably do this going forward in the future, but it's kind of what staff has inherited, basically.
So, being that there's some timing to it, so these other phases, like if this gets approved, these other ones have to follow up, and the money and for all these other owners, they have to be in line and ready to go, right?
Right, and really the hammer with all of that, because these are all lease sites, is that they have lease agreements with Harbor that they have ironclad deadlines that they need to meet. So yes, their use permit has associated deadlines, and so does their coastal permit, but ultimately they also need to complete their improvements per whatever their lease agreement says. And that was one other thing that I didn't mention in the presentation, but their lease amendments their leases have been amended to reflect these approvals.
So,
and timing.
Yeah, basically, like I was looking at some of the lease site numbers. It looks like they're splitting. Didn't they used to have, like, for instance, lease site 128 and 128W, that was all together. Now they're splitting it apart. Is that what they're doing?
Well, 128 and 128W, they'll be the same. The W refers to it's a waterside lease versus a landside lease. I believe 128 is the area where the pocket park is, and that the applicant can speak to this more too. But that's the area where the driveway realignment will go, and there has been some amendments between the applicant and Harbor regarding that particular lease site, because a portion of it will, I believe that's the one where it's getting smaller because it has to accommodate the driveway realignment and then the pocket park.
That's it for now.
Sure.
Just to follow up on the timing of, the like 1A and 1B. Now, was that slated to be done before this project? The improvements?
It's, I believe, Phase 1A and 1B are by the same applicant as is Phase 2, which is Mr. Fowler, who is tonight's applicant. I believe they can speak to that. It's dictated in their lease agreement when those docks have to be done, and I do believe that the docks will be done prior to this landslide development. And even with tonight's decision, and then the next step, this would go on to City Council next month, there will still be a many-month-long process with Coastal Commission going through the compliance review. I believe that the docks, the Phase 1B docks that are currently in building permit, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they need to be in construction by October. So, yeah, I think those docks would be done and are required to be done before this.
Okay. Another question. On the, if you can go back to the slide which shows the original concept plan and compared to the new, back. Okay. So, if you look at the original concept plan, the building to the right of the new building, I think it's like a Quonset hut kind of arrangement, and it shows that there's a new facade and, additional, making it a little bit more consistent with the building. But if you go into the next, what we're doing now, it is back to the original plan. So was that intentional that they are not going to continue the design elements into the existing building, where in the original plan the design elements were included into the building? Oh, but if you look at it, Jerry, it shows that they had done that. The marine, I think it's the existing marine shop.
The way I was reading it, the marine shop is not on their leasehold, but what they did was they shifted that other facade that you see was actually another building in the other concept plan that was in front of it. That's another building in front of where the machine shop is.
Oh, okay.
And so the machine shop is not part of this leasehold.
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm mistaken then, I'm sorry.
Okay, maybe they could clarify for us.
Do you have site plans for the other improvements that you could put up on the screen? The dockside and then the GAFCO improvements? And where are they in the concept precise stages?
I don't have the specific site plan for GAFCO, but I have some slides that I think will facilitate my answering your next question here. Let me swing back over there. I think this would be good here. So let me get the pointer. Okay, so I said Phase 1 was primarily water side, and then Phase 2 is land side. Phase 1 also included, this is Great American Fish Company here, aka GAFCO, as part of UPO 058 was the remodel of the GAFCO restaurant, and then there was going to be a new fish market here, and there is a new gangway that connects to the South T Pier, which was currently in building process, although it's been there a while. Your question, where are they in the process of commencing with their portion, because they're a separate business owner? Okay. Well, let me back up before I answer that question. So that's GAFCO. That's, business owner number one. Mr. Fowler, we could call him business owner number two. The third business owner is in this area here that's not shown on the plans. That is, GAFCO is owned by George League. Phase 1C would be the Harbor Hut, which is Troy League. Phase 1C is his portion of UPO 058, and his portion is construction of new floating docks. We have not received an application from the owner of GAFCO for him coming forward. I mean, he has precise plan approval. He needs to come forward with a building permit application. And I've talked to the harbor director about when do you expect that to come forward, because we're not getting any younger, basically. And we have not yet received an application is the answer, but we expect one. And then as far as this one, what I have been told is that the dock plans were put on hold when there was legal action regarding the city's approval of, in 2012, of approving an office space on the second floor of the Harbor Hut. And there was a delay in moving forward with the docks until there was some resolution with activity that was happening landward here. So also, we expect an application. The Community Development Department has not received any contact from either of these applicants. So it is not 100% clear when we expect to get an application or when the building division would get a building permit application. The applicant's representative might have more information. What I can say is that the Harbor Department has told me they expect something. And of course, again, they have lease requirements that require that they make improvements to their lease site as a condition of being granted years on their lease.
Well, part of the problem I'm having is that this concept plan was approved in conjunction with these other plans, and it seems like the connections have all fallen apart. So it seems like before we could approve this, it would be good to see what the other plans were, and so I was hoping we had a little bit more clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to hold my questions for now. I do need to report an ex parte communication with the applicant's representative, with Scott and Cindy, and a representative of the Harbor Commission, and to note that my decision will not be influenced by information in that session other than as presented as part of the staff report. With that, we'll open public comment, and let's begin with the applicant's representative, I see. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Tefft and members of the Commission. My name is Kathy Novak from Novak Consulting, and I'm here tonight representing Mr. Bob Fowler for the Morro Bay Landing Project. Thank you, Scott. This is a rather complex project because it's several years since the first approvals, and it also covers 3 different businesses and has had modifications done to the original plans. Staff has done their best to provide an overall description of the project and background information, so I will not take time to cover these items in depth. I would, however, like to focus my presentation on some questions that have been raised and one concern from Mr. Fowler on the conditions of approval. The first question in regard to the permit condition compliance and if the Coastal Commission permit has been issued. The Coastal Commission determined that since the project construction was to be phased over several years and divided up into segments, that they would issue a coastal development permit for each of these separate projects. So, for example, the first phase of the project was to build the floating docks. A dock plan for all 3 businesses was submitted to the Coastal Commission for their review and compliance conditions. They in turn deemed the project consistent with the conditions of approval and issued a CDP for all of the docks. The second phase of Mr. Fowler's project is to construct the land side improvements. The process for this is to get the final approvals by the city and then submit them to this Coastal Commission for compliance review and ultimately a CDP for this portion of the project. As a side note, we have a little unusual circumstance in that the Coastal Commission modified the building architecture to reflect, quote, a working dock, nautical maritime theme, unquote, rather than the modern type architecture design that was originally submitted and approved by the city. This change has created a little bit of a different process for us because we are asking both the Planning Commission and the City Council to accept the new design prior to going back to the Coastal Commission. To be clear, we can't return to the Coastal Commission and ask for their compliance determination without first having the city approvals, because the Coastal Commission will ask us and want us to show them that we have received the city approvals. The next question was, are the permits active? The answer is simple, yes. This was done through permit time extensions, permit amendments, and inaugurating the permits, as well as codifying the timelines with the master lease amendments. Next is in regards to the CDP condition for public access and amenities. The condition states that all public access and amenities associated with the floating docks are constructed and open for public use at the same time as the floating docks. This has been done and is currently underway with the next phase of the docks. There are 2 further sections to the condition that require the public areas and amenities associated with 1, the Great American Fish Company, and 2, Verge's, now Morro Bay Landing, be constructed and open for public use at the time of the development is done for that specific location. So in other words, GAFCO will be responsible for their portion of the public areas at the time their project is done, and Mr. Fowler is responsible for his portion, which is included with the proposed project before the Commission tonight. The next item was concerning view corridors. The question has been raised whether the project is consistent with the Waterfront Master Plan design guidelines. The design guidelines show that for a lease site 50 feet or more, there is a requirement for view corridors that are 30% of the width of the lease site. In order to make the determination for this requirement in consistency with the design guidelines, we need to look at how a view corridor is defined and examples in the design guidelines that show how the corridors can be calculated. First, the design guidelines state that, quote, view corridors shall be open and linear spaces located between or adjacent to buildings, affording views of the street and the harbor, the bay, the sandspit, and Morro Rock, end quote. This definition accompanies examples in Figure 5.2, which shows the use of view corridors both along the building and over the roof line of the building to achieve the 30%. The volumetric calculation was based on the approvals of the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the Coastal Commission for the previous design. Additionally, this methodology was described in detail in the staff reports to the Commission and the City Council. The report back then states, quote, although the view corridor requirement specifies a linear dimension, the guidelines will allow the ability to offset this requirement, provide the volume of space is increased. The examples given in the WF plan have been simplified for ease of illustration that represent a boxy structure in exchange for unobstructed views. The Verge's site requests to be evaluated using the volume method because the linear dimension provided is 42-foot wide corridor when a 48-foot is required. However, hopes they have achieved a concept and improvements to the waterfront area significant enough to allow for a slight deviation from the explicit reading of the rules, end quote. Both the Planning Commission and City Council made specific findings for the Waterfront Master Plan consistency, and for this part of the findings, there's included a couple of things. One was that, quote, the proposed project provides amenities in the WF plan, facilitates pedestrian, visual, and physical access to the waterfront, and takes advantage of outward views and characteristics of the topography in that the roof elements were altered to allow for better bay views. And another one said providing view corridors. In addition to the city findings for approval, the Coastal Commission also made the findings that the project was consistent and offset any other visual impacts with the installation of the view deck and the, quote, new 15-foot wide view corridor to the bay immediately north of Verge's sport fishing, end quote. I want to note that the Coastal Commission considers view corridors not only the vertical on-the-ground area, but the area above the roof lines so that all aspects of public view areas are considered. This is also consistent with your Commission direction as we discussed just a couple of weeks ago on another project. To illustrate what I've said, I want to show you 3 slides. So this is the first slide here. This is the original plan that was presented and approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council. Next slide, please. This is the current proposed plan that you're seeing tonight. And then next slide, please. And this is also the slide of the volumetric comparison between the original project and the proposed project. The last important detail that I would like to mention on this issue, specifically related to linear foot comparison, is that the original approved plans had a lease site width of 159 feet and a total view corridor of 39 feet. The project as proposed has the same lease site width but has 41 feet of view corridor. So this project has actually increased the corridor width by 2 feet. The next item from the questions is regarding building heights. The design guidelines allows the Commission to approve increased building heights pursuant to the PD overlay district. A finding of significant public benefit is necessary, along with the finding that the overall viewshed characters will be improved. This includes items such as open view slots or corridors in new designs as shown in Figure 5.2, including building massing and design, and also provisions for public viewing areas in the form of outdoor decks. To support this height request, the proposed project incorporates several public benefits and public viewing areas, which include the following. One is that the floating docks are open to the public. Two, that there is a 1,290 square foot view deck on the second floor. Three, there are public restrooms. Four, the driveway to the north of the building will be realigned and widened to accommodate large trucks accessing the alleyway to the commercial fish dock. Five, that there are public view areas on the ground level around each of the buildings. Six, the existing harbor walk will be extended along the building front. Seven, the modified building design has been reduced. The massing, the height is for almost approximately one half of the building and provides more open view area. And finally, 8, the current Dockside 3 building will be raised and a pocket park will be installed. This will open up significant sized view corridor from the Embarcadero that does not currently exist. I believe that covers most of the questions in a simplified format. If the Commission would like more information on any of these topics, I would be happy to answer your questions. The last item I have to discuss with the Commission this evening is regarding the removal of the pole sign. I am concerned with the inconsistent application of the city codes and prior approvals from which Mr. Fowler has relied on throughout this process. Staff has included in your report a letter from me which describes the current sign regulations and my response to staff's comments. I believe it is abundantly clear that the citation to the zoning ordinance section provided by staff is not applicable in this case. The section, that section allows for a non-conforming sign to remain with a change of ownership as long as there is not a change to the type of business. It states that a new owner may change any name or names provided there is no change in the sign size, configuration, or orientation. Furthermore, that section allows for a business to remove the sign for up to 60 days for repair and maintenance. The fact that the, quote, changeable copy, end quote, was removed and not reinserted within the 60-day time frame is not the same as removing the, quote, sign, which is defined as a structure in the city's codes. In addition, as I mentioned, Mr. Fowler has relied on these previous approvals from the city and the Coastal Commission to move this project forward without additional design modifications other than to the building, which was only due to the condition that was put on by the approval of the Coastal Commission, and that was to change the architecture. There should be no doubt that the prior approvals included the pole sign since it was shown on the photo simulations presented and evaluated at that time. The city requires photo simulations of projects on the waterfront as part of the design guidelines. It states that, quote, after review of the applicant's submittal, the city shall approve or deny the design component of the project based on the findings of the conformity with the design categories out in Section C, end quote. Section C states that the applicant shall either construct a perspective-based using a photograph or a photo montage of the design superimposed over a view parallel to the waterfront. This simulation was done and is attached to your staff report as Exhibit J. This specific photo simulation was presented and approved by the city in 2007 and was also presented and approved by the Coastal Commission in 2009. As per the code, the applicant at the time provided all the details and the city approved it, so therefore I do not believe it's appropriate for the city to reverse course and say now that the sign is inconsistent with the design guidelines and should not be supported. In summary, the action before the Commission tonight is to forward a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the modification to the building as it originally presented. The new building is consistent with the City Code since it has reduced the overall retail and office space by approximately 1,800 square feet. It has increased the second floor view deck by approximately 119 square feet and increased the overall view area by approximately 8.6%. There are a couple of minor reductions to the pocket park and the first floor public space, but this is due to the reduction in the building height and also to correct the actual lease line boundaries around the park. As for the view corridors, I believe the Commission can say that the project meets the intent of the design guidelines to provide open space area as referenced in Figure 5.2 in the design guidelines, and the increased building height as provided in the design criteria section number 2. In addition, the Commission has the authority in a PD overlay district to allow for deviations from standards when public benefits are proposed and also when it results in a better design. So in conclusion, the Commission has all the tools in the toolbox to adopt the findings for consistency and conditions of approval. On behalf of Mr. Fowler, I would respectfully request that the Commission support the project as it's presented tonight. This is going to conclude my part of the presentation. The architect's got something that he'd like to show. He's put together a special slideshow for you that's going to show you the building going from the ground up. But before I step down, I want to try to answer your questions that came up while you were talking to staff. One was on the lease site boundary amendments. There was a couple of lease site boundary amendments done for this project overall, and that was in the water side, where we had to increase the size of the water lease boundaries to accommodate for the floating docks. There are other lease line adjustments that are proposed, but those will happen after we get the final approvals, and we'll be working with the Harbor Hut to go, the Harbor Department to move forward and bring that to the City Council for their approvals for the actual lease line boundaries adjustments at that time. The dock construction timing, construction of Phase 1A is according to the master lease, is to be done by July of 2016, and 1B and the land side is to be completed by July of 2019. That's outlined in the master lease. The maintenance shed, there's not going to be any change to the architecture of the maintenance shed. The original project, there was an old maintenance shed down there, and at the time that the project was brought forward and that it was designed, that old maintenance shed was going to be demolished and then rebuilt with this new one. Well, in the intervening time here back in 2008, the city needed to actually take 6 feet of this lease site to accommodate the new commercial fisherman's ice machine that was going in next door. So in the process, the old maintenance shed that was there needed to be demolished at that point in time so that the city could take back the 6 feet of the lease site. So this maintenance shed that's there now was bought and installed in 2008, so it's proposed to remain as is. As far as the Great American Fish Company and the Harbor Hut, I've been talking to those folks. They know their deadlines. They additionally have timeline deadlines to bring forward. And as far as your comment, Jerry, each one of these businesses has to take care of their own development and their own timing. The GAFCO project actually needs to have a building permit by 2017, where Mr. Fowler's is actually a little bit later than that. So it's impossible for us to try to wait for GAFCO or the Harbor Hut to bring Mr. Fowler's project forward and have you approve it all at once, because it was recognized early on when we presented the project to the city that there was going to be, each one of these was going to be phased in at a different time. So that was made clear in the project description, and it's also clear in the Coastal Commission conditions of approval, because the timing for the development is different for each one of those projects. So we're consistent with the timeline that we've put forward and with the time extensions that we've got from the different agencies too. So hopefully that answers your question. So I'll invite the architect up to give you his special presentation.
Good evening. Gene Dowdy, 201 Main Street. Chairman, Planning Commission members. As an architect, I just lost something here. As an architect and engineering contractor who has specialized in marine design and construction for more than 40 years, I have worked on, over, around, and under most of the Morro Bay waterfront. This would be a seagull's view of the overall waterfront. The T-piers, GAFCO Harbor Hut, the ice house, and of course the power plants in the background. Bob Fowler has asked me to redesign the approved project with a maritime character. There are several great examples of structures in Morro Bay that provide character. Examples would be the Natural History Museum, Orville League's award-winning cannery building, the human scale and texture of the old HMSL building, And on the north end of the Embarcadero, both the T piers, and one of my favorite is the Harbor Hut with its South Sea style. We all know Morro Bay, not always tropical, but it's still fun to look at and dream. Additionally, the Thai restaurant or Dockside 3 building with its boat facade, and of course the utilitarian ice house, power plant buildings, all provide structures that are not just boxes, but are statements of interaction and character. This is looking at the site from above the Embarcadero on the south side. In my 40 years of hands-on experience of marine work, the first design function would be of pilings. Because of the instability of soil below, pilings play a vital role in the structural integrity of marine structures. Not only do they have to resist the normal loads of buildings, but they must withstand tidal waves, collision by ships, and the harsh marine environment. We propose to bring pilings up onto the land in a 16-foot grid, which will provide us with a human-scale framework to work within. The second major design function would be the horizontal line, which reflects the horizon. If we were lived in mountains, of course, we would incorporate inclined planes. We propose to install heavy timber-treated beams to reflect this horizontal function and provide exposed structural elements. We then propose to cross those members with additional heavy timber members to create a stable framework to work within. The major design characteristics would be to secure laminated curved beams for the roof structure. These reflect the movement of water, the graceful shear lines of our boats, the catenary curves of sailboats and their lines. The second step beams allow greater fenestration, a separation of the upper and lower units, and breaks up the massing of the building. Within this framework, we will create a sport fishing complex, a marine-related retail area, and public accessible restrooms on the first floor. These elements will allow the user to experience the feeling of a marine structure surrounding them. To access the second floor, we'll install a vertical element of a public elevator and public stairs. In compliance with the approved plans, we will provide a large public viewing area on the second floor, overlooking the waterfront, and additional public stairs for this area. We will also relocate a small restaurant from the removed one relocated on lease site 128 and a small office building. Capping the roof structure will be colored architectural style metal roofing. We will also include tinted glazing railings with bird strike deterrent. As viewed from the south Embarcadero, the siding shall be hardy plank with staggered vertical lapping for additional articulation of the building. Stone facing on the stairs around the elevator to reflect the rock. Looking from the middle of the Embarcadero, with the removal of Dockside 3 restaurant, shown is the pocket park and the relocated widened driveway. We shall incorporate stamped hardscape to be placed around the building to establish the transition from pedestrian area to vehicular area. As you enter the sport fishing side below, note the signage that is part of the exposed beam. By offsetting the entrances, we create negative spaces that welcome the public. We will also provide some additional benches and some modest drought-resistant landscaping. The projected beams shall provide great interaction of light and shadow, as well as increase the expression of the building. The view from the interior should allow the user an expanding view shed of the bay beyond. The curved beams will reflect the interior ship designs and the feeling of maritime movement. Access for patrons and public are provided on the seaward side. Once again, a view from the parking lot to the north. And I'd like to view the waterfront from the bayside. This building is one of the few first impressions that boaters will see when they enter our harbor. I think that we should say Morro Bay respects our marine heritage and are proud to show it. Now, I'm able to turn this project around in any way you would like. And if there's any questions, if you want to see something particular, we can zoom in, turn around, look at it from any perspective you like. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty and Ms. Novak. I think we'll see if there's any other members of the public that would like to comment on this, and then we may come back with questions.
Okay.
So if there's anyone else who's here to speak on this agenda item, please, now's the time to do so. Okay. Then we will bring it back to council and to see if there are any questions for applicant or for either the applicant or Ms. Novak or Mr. Doherty. Sure.
Ms. Novak, you in your presentation you mentioned that the CDP phased-in project, that there was separate CDPs for the dock and landing. Is that correct?
Basically, there's one CDP that's been issued for the entire project, but the Coastal Commission recognized that it was going to be difficult to issue one CDP for everything because we would have had to provided all the dock plans, all the building plans, and everything at one time to be able to issue the CDP. So the Coastal Commission talked about it, and they figured that the best and simplest thing to do would be for us to section off this project. So for the first part was the floating dock, so we gave them the plans showing the floating dock construction, and what they did is they made it, we put on the plans and made it very clear that what the Coastal Commission was issuing the permit for was only the docks. There was a note on the plans that says that the land side portion of the building is not a part of these plans. So then the Coastal Commission could then go ahead and issue the CDP for the floating docks. So we're going to repeat that process with each one of the segments we bring forward. So with this segment for Mr. Fowler's project, I'll be going to the Coastal Commission and asking them to issue a CDP for just what the Commission is approving tonight. Then when Harbor Hut gets ready to do theirs, I will do the same with them. And when GAFCO comes in and does their project, I will do the same for GAFCO. So there will be several CDPs issued under this one big umbrella CDP, if that makes sense.
Actually, it doesn't to me, because it seems to me like you have one CDP for a whole project, and now you're on taking it on a petri dish and cutting it up, and then aren't you required to get get a CDP for this?
Yes, I will be going to the Coastal Commission. Once the city approves the plans, once you go through your hearing process and we get onto the city council and whatever the final plan is approved by the city council, I will go back to the Coastal Commission and they will issue another CDP for this portion of the project. When we presented the project to the city and to the Coastal Commission, we made it extremely clear in the project description that each one of these was going to be done at a different time and it was a different phase. Even though that we were presenting the overall 22 lease sites to them, it was sectioned off back then and made clear that each one would be coming in separately. So the Coastal Commission recognized that that was the easiest way to do it, is issue separate CDPs for each portion of the project that comes before them when the time is ready.
And if I could interject, Richard, the initial approval, the initial approval of the application for CDP and notice of intent did have a phased schedule in it for, yeah, it did. It's had to be revised because they weren't able to meet the schedule, but it did recognize that it was phased.
It was a condition of approval.
Other questions? No? Yeah.
For staff, see if I remember this correctly. The height limitation is 17 feet, correct? Okay, you could go to a bonus of 25 feet. But shouldn't the calculation on net free area be made from the 17-foot level instead of the 25-foot level? Because that additional footage is the actual bonus you're getting. So it seems to me that the open net free area is calculated from the wrong height elevation.
Do you mean the extra 8 feet of height that you get? That you would count that
for the open area percentage?
I believe that's, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I believe that's what they did. Is they calculated the linear space and then the areas to the left and right of the roof peaks, basically.
But they did that to the 25-foot elevation above grade instead of to the 17-foot elevation above grade.
Right.
That's based on an illustration in the waterfront master plan.
Yeah.
Can I offer just a little comment on that? Would maybe be helpful. In the waterfront master plan, the design guidelines, we're talking about two separate issues here. One issue is the view corridor and the requirement for the view corridors that, depending on the size, the width of the lease site. Then we start talking about the second issue, which is the building height. So they're in two separate sections of the waterfront master plan. In the design guidelines, it says under increased building height, it says standard building heights will be a maximum allowable height unless there is a use permit or plan development approved by the Planning Commission allowing the greater height pursuant to the Plan Development Overlay District. In addition to the required finding of significant public benefit, increases in height may be allowed to up to maximum of 25 feet under the PD Zoning Overlay District, with the finding that the overall view shed characteristics will be improved or at minimum not diminished from the public viewing locations established on Figure 5.4 and upon meeting the following requirements. And there's 5 things on this list. So I guess the view corridors and the building height, increased building height, are kind of getting pushed together, but they're really two separate issues. They're two separate things that the waterfront master plan is looking at. Some of the items are similar, the requirements, because the increased building height wants the public benefits, plus it likes having the view corridors. So hopefully, if you want, you're welcome to look at my waterfront master plan. I can show you the two specific sections if that helps you out.
Okay. I just wanted the staff to be clear if we were taking the elevation and the calculations from the correct point. In my reading of it, I thought you were using the envelope to the 17-foot height, but I'm welcome to be corrected on that.
The open view area comparison that we showed you on the slide has to do with the 30% requirement for the view corridors, and that there is an allowance for a volumetric calculation, which the prior City Council and Planning Commission and the Coastal Commission used that to satisfy the requirement that there's going to be a view corridor of 30% for the project, which is different than the allowable increased building height.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, this is probably more a discussion for the commission than a discussion with the applicant.
Then the other question is on the concept plan that was approved, and if memory serves me right, I voted no on that concept plan because of certain items back in the day, if memory serves me. But One of the things that was approved in that concept plan was a harborside walkway of a minimum of 8 foot on the harbor side of the building, which was eliminated in this precise plan that we have today. And in the slide that you had, where we had the greens and the blues, it showed a linkage to the north side, which I can't find on the precise plans for the lateral access along the bayfront. And part of the reason why I wanted to see the other plans was to make sure that we're having our linkages on the harbor side, harbor walk or walkway connecting. And by splitting these up like this and having them come forward without the other plans being approved or without the requirements that they connect through here, we're losing that. And I want to be perfectly clear that I'm not going to support anything, or that I'm not going to support anything that doesn't have that linkage there.
Okay.
But
this is a question for.
Well, the question is that where's that linkage that you showed on the where you showed the lateral access for the green and the blue up there? I don't see that lateral access for the green on this plan.
Okay. I guess first I would ask if AGP can maybe bring up that slide on the PowerPoint if they're listening. The green and the blue image that you saw, that was pulled out of the 2007, so we don't have a specific analogous submittal in this application, but what we have are the slides showing the site plan, and the project is designed to connect into the harbor front. So,
but only on the land side.
On the land side, it'll extend the harbor walk. I think it's like,
but
But
it doesn't connect back to the wharfage on the north side, on the harbor side.
Well, there will be vertical access on both the north and south side.
I'm talking about the horizontal access that cuts across from north to south along the harbor side of the building.
Okay.
It was there in the mall plan, but it's not there now.
Okay, I'll see if I. Let's see.
Floating docks don't connect. Not to the north side.
Not yet, but they will.
Okay, so this is showing public access, and the shaded area would be your, I don't have the pointer. The shaded area would be along the bottom of the slide throughout the whole image is all of the public access. So access to the gangway, and then the lateral access there. It doesn't give us a global image of how it ties into the adjacent sites. That is correct.
Yeah, I don't see how it ties into the wharf because you're on waterfront side. I mean, you're on the floating dock at that point. And how does it tie into the wharf that's 14 feet above?
Cindy, go to the slide that has the blue and green on it. That one, yeah, there you go.
Okay. So
there's the green, where the green goes on the north side and connects up to the wharf by the machine shop, the working area. I don't see that on the proposed plans.
Oh, okay. So that the area of green that's at the farthest to the left of the slide, right where the machine shop is, how does that connect now if I'm going north down the Embarcadero? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Okay. So how can you get from, if you're walking down the street, down that
green
the
path.
Truck access
to
the machine shop, how do you get in front of the building, along the harbor side to the rest of that lateral, that north-south access?
And right now there is, so that if you were to continue walking that green area, that is the backside of the Dockside 2 and Dockside 3 restaurant. There is existing access there now, but it's basically...
No, I'm not talking about between Tognazini's.
I mean, behind them.
Behind this proposed precise plan.
Right, and behind this proposed precise plan,
Right.
So where it's...
Yeah, I just don't see...
Okay, so it says Verge's Landing there, because this is an old slide.
I don't see the connection in this plan. And there was, if you look at the mall floor plan, or the mall site plan,
let's see.
There was a 8-foot walkway around, along from the roadway around the building on the harbor side.
Okay, yeah, because they're on the north, at the top of the page there, that's the mall plan. On the bottom is the current plan. Yeah, okay.
So that linkage is gone as far as I can tell.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was, some of that was modified when the city council approved the project because there was some problems when we were trying to make the linkages down on the other side of the project, down around Harbor Hut and Gafco. And there was also a concern for eelgrass. And if you're aware that the Coastal Commission does not like to have impact to eelgrass, so we had to do some modifications at the Coastal Commission level as well. So we've done our best, and what the Coastal Commission and the City Council ultimately approved was that since we are providing the coastal lateral access on the floating docks, that suffices for not having that harbor walk attached to the building level. So the entire floating dock from Mr. Fowler's site all the way to the South T Pier is open public lateral access. So we actually have the harbor walk plus the floating dock is our for access.
But it doesn't connect at this north end.
It does when you go into the gangway.
But not at the very north end.
Not when you're on the floating dock, right, making that connection to the wharf right there by the maintenance shop. No, right. You just go to the gangway right here by the tackle shop building, and that's where you're going to get from the floating dock up to the tackle shop area. This is all part of a work area and is part of the maintenance shed. And the city's LCP has, and the design guidelines have allowances for not having public access way through work area, especially when it's for commercial fishing. So there's nothing that's being proposed here that's inconsistent with the LCP because it does provide for that exception to not have public access go through that area. There's a hoist on the right here that is going to be dangerous for people to be walking through there, and we told the City Council and the Coastal Commission that, and that's the reason why there's not a connection just on the very north end. But they were satisfied that the connection, somebody could walk to the end of the dock right there, then turn around, walk back, 25, 30 feet, get on the gangway, and then go up around the building.
Okay, well, thank you for your explanation.
Sure.
I guess I've been handed the chair for the next couple minutes, so Richard, if you had some questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that machine shop and then having that access. I was under the impression that building isn't permitted.
No, it is permitted. It was done in 2008. The city at the time said that the old maintenance shed that was there needed to come down because they were putting the ice machine in right here. So the old maintenance shed was right along the old property boundary or the lease line that's right there. The city came in and pushed this over 6 feet and said, we need 6 more feet of this lease site right there to be able to put this ice machine in. So when the city said that they would help, at the time it was Darby Neal that was at Verge's, the city harbor department said that they will help you get the building permit to install this new maintenance shed, which has now been converted to a fish processing building. So that was all done in 2008.
Okay, so that building, you're telling me, has a CDP?
Correct. At the time, there was probably, I think if I remember right, they issued a waiver on it, and it was determined it didn't need to because it was repair and maintenance of an existing building. I can go back and check the records, but this has been on the plans, and it was made very clear to the Coastal Commission when we went up there that this building had been changed, and the lease site was moved over, and the old building was demolished. So this building is a permitted building.
By the city and the Coastal Commission?
Yes.
And Commissioner Lucas?
I guess I just wanted to ask staff, the sequencing that we saw, 1A, 1B, 2, is Mr. Fowler allowed to occupy this structure before 1B is finished?
Oh, sure.
Currently in the resolution, there's nothing that says Phase 1B needs to be completed prior to occupancy and completion of what you have before you tonight, Phase 2. They have timing deadlines in their master lease with the Harbor Department that dictate that those requirements have to be done. And at the speed at which everything is going, they applied for their building permits for Phase 1B last October. They're on their second submittal. They'll have some eelgrass studies to do before they can have that building permit issued. I would imagine that building permit's likely going to be issued within the next few months. This development won't be occupied. I mean, just the timing, it won't work out. But stranger things have happened. So there is no condition in the resolution tonight that says Phase 1B has to be completed. So
these large aggregate of multiple owners, we don't get the benefit of the public access. We're not guaranteed a benefit of the public access before the private access is done.
Well, each of the business owners is required to complete those public access improvements. So Phase 1B, the docks that I said are in building permit, that was approved under a separate precise plan. And so they've kind of, leapfrogged ahead. They're putting in those improvements. That precise plan was done by Planning Commission in 2010. And this Phase 2, which is precise plan, revised concept / precise plan, has its own public improvement requirements with it, such as the pocket park and the extension of the harbor walk and the observation decks.
So the only benefit to the public is that if the other people don't perform on their part, there's some punitive aspect of the lease situation?
The lease could be revoked.
Okay.
I mean, that's simple. I mean, they need to comply with their lease requirements. If they don't, then we take them through an action to terminate the lease. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the hammer, if you want to call it that. The problem that you have with the way, with the permitting, having one large permit, I mean, I would never advocate that we do this again, because you didn't need a crystal ball to see this coming. I mean, it amazes me, but it happened, and so now we're dealing with it. You have somebody that's willing to come forward with improvements right now that's going to give us more public access in that area, versus it would have been nice if the other things come in, in the order which they originally thought they were going to, but that didn't happen, and that hasn't happened. And without it, we didn't have a hook or a requirement in the conditioning that did that. There's a little bit of a different story with the lease requirements. They have a certain amount of time they have to perform within, and then the city can take action or extend leases or what have you. So,
okay. Any other questions for?
No. Kathy, did you perform an eelgrass study? Do you have? I didn't see a.
Yes.
Is there? I didn't see any eelgrass layouts on the site plan.
Right. Well, the building plan that you're reviewing tonight wouldn't have an eelgrass study as part of the project, because we're not proposing anything over the water, so there's not going to be a requirement for the eelgrass survey. The survey is going to be as part of the project for the floating dock area, but nothing with this building project is going to require the eelgrass survey.
Well, you're using the logic that you can't put a walkway out on that side of the building because of the eelgrass, and I don't see any supporting evidence that there's eelgrass there.
Well, I could, had I known in advance, I could have brought the eelgrass survey with me, because it does show, and the city does have copies of the eelgrass surveys that we've done. We had the one done originally back a number of years ago when we did the project and we did the evaluation, and then we also had to do an amendment to the permit, and we provided some more additional information on the eelgrass surveys. So we have met the requirements for the Army Corps and Coastal Commission and city as far as eelgrass surveys go. But the minute that we start going over, cantilevering over into the bay is where we start running issues. And as a matter of fact, now we're running into issues not only if there's no eelgrass there, you still can't, they still have a hard time occupying the space because it's habitat. So it's a real fine line that we're having to walk with these projects now in design.
Okay, thank you.
And there's visible eelgrass in that area. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I will close public comment and bring it back to staff, bring it back to the commission. We're now at 8:12. Would you guys like to take a break before we do our deliberations? And maybe, right, I think it'd be a good time for it.
You don't get one.